Okay, our watercolor's dry, and make sure it's super dry. You can use a blow dryer, or I use this heat gun that I have set up here at my station. And then you're going to take your finger, pardon, my hands are dirty. Take your hands and gently rub, but you have to make sure before you do that it really is dry. You don't want to see any liquid. And then you're just going to scrape that salt right off of your picture, okay? What you will find, you can see here, are some little textury dots to sort of add interest to your painting. Now, my salt was so fine that the dots are very small, so you might not see it as much on the camera, okay? All right, I'm going to turn my palette around briefly, and you can see my palette is really dirty, and when it fell, some other colors mixed in, little chunks fell in there, so it's not exactly clean. I might be a mother's nightmare when it comes to that. I was my own mother's nightmare. When she was alive, I would really irritate her by messing up her palette. She was an artist too. But she was very kind and let me goof around. Now I'm going to go ahead and get this yellow here. I like this yellow better, but it's got some blue that fell into it, and it's sort of turned green, so I'm not going to pick that. We're going to take this, and I'm going to put some in this well here, because I want to make sure it's nice and clean. You might want to get some clean water before we begin this part. Clean up your area. Get the salt off the area. And then I'm going to add some water in here just to give us a nice amount of color. Okay. Now, we are using, I'm not sure exactly what color yellow this is. I squirted some tubes in here, and like I said before, I'm not sure the quality is all that great. I found that it's a little bit grainy for my taste, but, you just use what you got. And I want to Whoa! Well, that just happened. Learning opportunity. Okay, so I'm going to take a clean towel, dip it in my clean water, and I'm going to touch that spot as quick as I can and rub and blot that yellow. Now I'm going to press into the paper a little bit. I didn't get it completely out, but as you can see, it's a lot better. That happens sometimes, my friends. I am famous for little things like that, which is why I usually like to mask mine off, because something always happens to me, but it's okay. All right, we go on with our lives. Now, I'm going to take some yellow, and I'm going to paint the inside first of our tent. So we're going to come in here and paint. We're just doing pigment. We're not going to wet it ahead of time. We're doing water with our pigment. We're going to fill our tent. We're going to pretend, and you can actually just cover over that middle part. We're going to pretend that someone has a lantern inside of their tent. Okay? So we're going to lay that pigment in a couple of layers. Doesn't have to be perfectly organized or flat. And then I'm going to come over here to this yellow ochre. Dip a little of my brush. This yellow ochre is a little bit duller. It's not a bright yellow. It's sort of a cool yellow. And then we're going to come in here and just add a few little extra flecks of darker yellow. Okay? Just to give it kind of a soft glow. And while we have this yellow on our brush, I'm dipping it back in the original yellow. We're going to hit the water just a little bit, just to give kind of a glow that's coming off of the tint. Okay? And it does turn a little bit green on the surface of the water. That's okay. If it bothers you, you can paint it white and go back in and put it on there. All right, we're also going to use this ochre, and we're going to just put some brighter yellows down in here. We're going to actually cover most of that up, but we're going to kind of pretend like the tent is casting the light on the ground in front of the tent, okay? Now, before we go on with our next color of this area down here, we're going to go ahead and lay in another wash of dark blue. Okay, so I'm going to turn my palette again. I know this is a little bit cumbersome, but this is just what I have here. And we're going to get this really dark midnight blue, one of my favorite colors. And we're going to come in here and lay another layer. You can use a smaller brush if you want. But I love getting lots of layers. And the reason I turn my work is because it gives a depth to the painting. The more layers, the more depth. Okay, a little bit of water. We're going to go ahead and fan this a little, just a little bit. We don't want to mess up our salt, but we're just going to smooth that line and sort of drag it into the color that's already there, just with our water. Cleaning my brush again and watering in. Okay. Now I'm going to do it again one more time with a smaller tipped brush. And we're just laying right at the edge. So I'm going to turn a little bit here. And as you can see, the depth that we're getting is just beautiful. That's what a lot of people don't understand about watercolor, is that it really is all about layering and patience. If you are patient and gentle with your paper will be kind to you, and the watercolors will be very happy. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and come down just a little bit here, just for dramatic effect. I always tell my students when we're watercoloring that it's like you have to be gentle, like painting makeup on a fairy. You don't want to be rough with the fairy, because the fairy will get hurt. You don't want to be rough with your watercolor. You want to be very gentle. We're going to backwash into this a little to smooth out those lines that we've created again, making sure we are blending at the edge of our pigment. And you could come over a little further if you wanted. If you want this to come out just a little bit more, just gently creating a little water line that smooths that pigment into the pigment we've already laid down. Look how dramatic that looks. Very cool. All right. Now we're going to take some of our blue, not the darkest blue, but the intermediate blue. I forget what color this is. And then we're going to paint our tint. Now you could paint it green or any color, purple, really any color you want. I'm going to keep it blue for this painting. And we're going to kind of paint a flat application on the whole surface. If you want to use a different brush, you can. I tend a lot of times in watercolor to use the same brush for most of it, and then just rotate based on the need. Okay, so we've laid a flat application. Now I'm going to add in another dark layer from the top down, adding another layer of paint. Okay, and I'm also going to come down this side right here to do the other side, and then we can clean up this edge like that. I might come down a little bit further with my tint, just because I kind of changed the line a little. All right, and now I'm going to show you how to lift. I'm rinsing my brush, making sure it's nice and clear, See, there was some stuff on the side of my brush that I did not know about. I'm going to get that all cleaned off, making sure that all of the paint is out of my brush and it's just water, okay? Have your paper towel nearby, and we're going to start at the bottom, and we're going to just sort of lift a little of this color out, and then tap, lift, tap, lift, tap, lift, tap. Okay, I think that's good, and now we're going to bring this down. So, I'm going to bring this kind of down, and we create just a sort of slight shadow. We're going to come back in that with some dark at the top. Just make like a line. Okay, clean your brush, making sure there's a little bit of water in there. And then we're going to blur this line again, just with water, to make it sort of come down into this area here. Okay. All right. So now we are going to create this dark area here using a dark brown. So let me turn my palette again. Hopefully you can see this. Let me check my camera view. So this brown right here is what we're going to be using, and the black at the corner. Okay. So we're going to start with this color here. Get some water on there. I'm going to rub it around, tickle it a little bit, get some of that pigment worked up. Making a lot of racket with that, aren't I? Okay. Then I'm going to bring it over to my palette here, my clean space for mixing. Get some of that in there. Some water. Fill my brush with pigment. Get it in that little space there. And we're going to lay in our backdrop. So we have to be careful about right next to there, but we can get this corner here. Gonna lay in some pigment here, using small little strokes, keeping in mind of our edge. And the edge of our tint may still be wet, so we need to be careful. And right now, we're just kind of filling the space. I'm going to turn my work for just a moment because I feel like I can get a better line going this direction. You have to work in the way that is right for you. So if you need to turn your work, turn your work. Okay. And now I'm going to do this other side the same way, laying in our first layer. Following with just the tip of our brush. And I've changed the waterline a little, but I'm going to go ahead and go over that. And remember, we decided to leave those lights there just because we're going to come in here and do little strokes. Little tiny strokes just to show. I'm going to pick up just a little bit more pigment. Don't want this to be too light. Get this filled in. Remembering that this is a shoreline, so we want to kind of make sure that it's not a straight line. And then we're going to get over here right at the edge really carefully, staying in our circle. Okay, now while this is wet, I'm going to move over here to this dark black color. Ooh, that has something else in there. Looks a little bit greenish, which, you know, isn't the end of the world, but yep. Look at that, my friends. A piece of green in my black. That happens. If it happens, it happens. I have some black from an earlier video. I think I'm going to use that for the time being. So, you know, this happens sometimes. Alright, so we're going to dip in this black. This is black watercolor from that same pan, but it's cleaned. And we're going to come in here while this is still wet. We're going to hit this brown. Make it nice and dark. So create some interest and contrast right by the edge. Gonna drag some of these darks in. And then we'll come over here to this side. I'm going to go ahead and make this mostly dark. Dark brown, almost black. Behind this tint. Remembering just to use the tip of our brush. It's a little different than using acrylic because in acrylic you're pressing the brush pretty firmly into the surface that you're working on. Okay, I'm gonna get some more black. I wonder if I can put this in here. Give it a little spray. This is very dried watercolor, in case you hadn't figured that out. I squirted it in there a long time ago and it got dropped. So, this has a little green in it, but we're going to let that soak for just a little bit. Okay, see if we can get some more pigment out of that. Sort of a greenish gray. Alright, I'm going to clean my brush and go back into my brown a little bit. And make a little brown and black together. Get some more layers in here, and we're going to let this dry nice and dry. Now, at this time, if you want to go ahead and draw in some tree trunks, okay, we can do that. And then we're going to let it dry. So we're going to put like, first I think I want to do a really light version of that black because we're going to put some ghost trees in the background. Okay, so this might be a tree that's back in here. That's not as visible. Maybe there's one over here on this side. just the impression of the tree. This guy's kind of leaning funny. Might have to change him. I kind of like that. I think that's good for the shadows. We don't want too many. Put some darker in there just to kind of let it do its thing. It's going to run wherever it's wet. Okay, we're going to let this dry for a little while. While we're letting that upper part dry, let's go ahead and hit some blue again on this water. And that's really what this is about. You just have to focus from one part of your painting to another, allowing parts to dry. So we're going to lay in some even darker right here. Just real loose. Right at the edge. Doing sort of horizontal juts to create some variances in the water. Okay? Layer by layer. Using just the tip of our brush. And after we do this, we're going to take a break and let our work dry. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out just a little bit more here. More water. And we're just creating those layers. Watercolor can be a little bit boring to watch. Sometimes it's more fun to do, I suppose. And a lot of watercolor can be learned by just doing, by just getting in there and trying. And down here, some of our watercolor can meet. All right, we got some water. And we're going to let those dry and come back for the next step where we're going to lay in our trees and put a little bit of grass around and put the white for our stars. Maybe even a shooting star, a comet.